Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen up, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking about the one and only ICP. Now, if you guys don't know, I am a huge fan of this coin. Without getting too quote unquote political or anything, this coin for me objectively is top 10 when it comes to what it can provide, what type of value it can provide for crypto, what it can do, the technology and everything. For me, it's just like top 10, easy top 10, right? Before we dive into the technical analysis, ladies and gentlemen, we can see that from No BS Crypto, right? He made a great statement, and I just wanted to say this because it's already right here. We can see ICP didn't rebrand to AI. The AI trend happened to line up perfectly with how ICP embodies pure Web3 decentralization. Most AI projects will still rely on the Web2 infrastructure. ICP said F that. Anything running on ICP doesn't require any traditional tech. It lives on ICP. So huge bonus, right? Huge bonus. That is exactly what we love to see from Internet Computer Protocol. Okay. When we bring up ICP, we can see, ladies and gentlemen, that we are at $5.40, almost at 3 billion market cap with 86 million volume. Okay, so really nice and solid, very active. This is what we love to see. Now, before we continue the video, ladies and gentlemen, highly recommend for you guys to join the Discord. We do have the free open version of it, right? It's just literally the first link. Just, trying to create and open the community a little bit more, just so you guys are closer in the loop. And if you really want next level advanced information, highly recommend joining the private community, as I am giving out multiple new coins and tokens that I do know have a very high probability of doing extremely well this cycle, as well as you can get a portfolio review and access to a bunch of information. Anyways, let's just jump back into this. So we can see, ladies and gentlemen, that ICP, right, has broken structure, right? It has broken structure a couple of weeks ago. We went from selling off to sideways, right? We can see, boom, sideways over here. Actually, I'm not going to count this point. This is the main sideways point. We broke up, and then we can see we were selling off slowly. But we can see we did technically create a higher low, right? We had these lows over here, and then boom, higher low. And guess what? Expansion. You see it lined up perfectly. And now, once again, it seems like we're doing something very extremely similar, where we are just kind of going up and down, and we're looking to be selling off. Now, for me, as long as ICP closes above 495, then it's still very bullish, the structure. Okay, it is still very bullish. Now, here's something I do want to say, as there has been a lot of new subscribers and a lot of people that have been, joining and subscribing for ICP. All right, here's the deal. I find something very, familiar that's going on that happened not too long ago. Well, a couple months ago, over a year or 2 years by now. But look, ladies and gentlemen, okay, here is the deal. And now, if you watch the other previews, you might know this, but this is more for the new people. And this is still very valid information. So we can see 1 and 2 tops, right? Top number 1, top number 2. What do we have over here? Top number 1, top number 2. Okay. What do we have here? Boom, roughly a support. Boom, what do we have? Roughly a support. What happens after we go below the support? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we failed to go higher, and then we crash lower, right? We failed to go higher than this. We had multiple weeks of rejections, and then we went lower. And then we can see, right, from selling off, we started to go sideways. And then we can see, right? Now, obviously, there's less weekly candles here, but we can see the data started to shift. The weekly candles were consistently closing higher and higher, and eventually it bursted to the upside. And now something very similar is happening, right? We have this bottom here, this bottom here, this bottom here. But we also, ladies and gentlemen, that I noticed is we have a top here, and a top here. So we are getting sandwiched in. What does that mean? Well, ICP is going to have to make a decision very, very soon. Okay. Over the next few short weeks. Now, we do have this war happening. There are higher tensions, and things can obviously mess things up for crypto, right? Obviously, if we go into World War III or some next level, things happen, then we could see a delay in growth, right? We could see a delay in growth. Now, that doesn't mean the project itself loses any value. That doesn't mean necessarily there's going to be less transactions or anything. But in terms of the value for the coin, then yes, we would be potentially going lower because of the circumstances that we are dealing with. But under normal circumstances, with what we expect with Bitcoin and altcoin seasons over the next few weeks, few short months, is overall, I do expect for us to create a higher low and then kind of go sideways and then break out. Okay. I truly do believe with ICP that we are somewhere in this stage. Okay. If I go on the daily, maybe I could find some kind of data that was very, very similar. All right. It was very, very similar. And no, not necessarily. It was more clear than this. You could argue, right? You could argue lower, 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 right? Even though this is kind of equal, but this is the way it closes technically a little bit lower, right? If we make it cleaner, boom, like this, right? We can see lower, 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 and then higher, pretty much double bottom, higher, higher, and eventually we explode, right? Now you gotta remember, this happened in a much shorter time because it took less money to move things. We just transitioned from practically bear season accumulation to the start of the pump. So context was a little bit different. Things will take a little bit longer to brew up. But you got to remember, the pumps will be more aggressive. They will be faster. Once we break from this trend line, right? Once we break from this trend line, we should be hitting, very, very nice prices. I do believe, if things went to complete crap at the bare minimum, and I mean bare minimum, like worst altcoin season ever should be like $32, which you still get roughly a 6x from here. So, you still make some type of money, better than the banks. Yeah, higher risk, higher everything, whatever. But ultimately, that is my goal. These are my targets for now is the 32. Then I'm going to be looking at the $50 price range. But I do think ultimately we should be hitting around that $70 mark. Now, ICP can go potentially a lot higher, but that is a conversation for another time, for another video. We can see if ICP were to roughly 10x, then we would be sitting at, let's just say 29 billion market cap at roughly $54. And I do believe this is one of those coins that could hit very well between the 35 to 45 billion market cap zone, right? So $55 to that $70 range is more than realistic, more than ideal for a beautiful coin like ICP. But that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you guys did enjoy. Remember, the first link is to the Discord that is open for everybody. And of course, highly recommend joining the private community as the time to really buckle up on your portfolio. Make sure you don't make any mistakes or exchange and swap bad coins for good ones is now. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.